What's up, everybody, and welcome into episode 30 of the H&M Trucking podcast. I am your host, Marcus. Thank you all for being here today. As always, we appreciate everyone that takes part in or listens to this podcast. I say it off the top every single week. I'm going to say it again. This is just kind of the homework portion of the show. Share the show with your fellow drivers. Tell your family about it. Tell anybody about it, really. Listen to it. Click subscribe. Comment on our social posts. When you see the flyer come up for next week's episode, put something down there in the comments if you want to hear it. If you want to be on the show, contact Eve or reach out directly to me through those social posts. We will get you on this podcast. So, episode 30, what are we talking about? Well, it's not the most exciting thing in the world. I will prepare you for that. But we've done a very good job of keeping it as exciting as we possibly can. On this week's episode, we're only going to have a couple of guests. First, we're going to have Essary and Connie Tran on from the HR department at H&M Trucking. Open enrollment is just around the corner, and there's a lot of benefit changes that are coming. From what I understand, they're all good. These are all benefit decisions that have been made to make the package better, keep a little bit more money in your pocket, or cost you a little bit less money over the course of the year. Also, some consolidation coming into this, so it makes things a little bit easier to navigate. As I said, all good things, but there's a lot of information here. So sit back, relax, crack open something with a little bit of caffeine, and get ready for this, because Eve is coming on here, and as always, she's going to do a great job. Eve will give you all the information that you need, and if you don't get it from this podcast, it's okay to just call her. She's already told me that, and I'm sure that she will say it in the interview that's coming up here next. So, without further ado, let's get to it. It's our benefits episode, where we talk about how you can get all of your benefits squared away for the next year of rolling down the road.
From Omaha, Nebraska, to whatever lane you're driving, this is the H&M Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
You know, there's a few times in a podcast host's life where you feel like you've really made it, and today is one of those times, because I have one of my favorite guests here with me, HR manager Eve Essary from H&M Trucking, and she brought friends. That means she likes me. She really likes me. Eve, thank you so much for joining me today.
Marcus, you know I brought my friends, not your friends, right?
I'll try to get them to be my friends. Don't blow up my spot here, Eve. She doesn't know me yet. Give me a chance, a fighting chance.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll see what happens at the end of this.
So who you got with you today?
I have Connie Tran. So she is the HR generalist at H&M. And one of the things that we're talking about today is benefits and enrollment and all of that. Open enrollment is coming up. And she's really the one that's going to be helping everybody get through it, including myself. So she's really an expert when it comes to this stuff. And so I brought her along with me so that she can correct me.
Oh, perfect. That's great, because Eve corrects me a lot. So having you to correct Eve means that we should be able to get everything right in this episode.
Right. I mean, it's rare, but, I'm here to correct her if I need to.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here today as well. As you said, this episode is going to concentrate kind of squarely on benefits. We are going to have a driver profile. That's never going to change. But we figured we should dedicate quite a bit of time to this to make sure that the drivers have all the information that they need so that they can make sure to get their benefits on track with where they need them. I have zero knowledge on this topic, so I am going to turn it over to you, Eve, and let you take the wheel here.
Awesome. I did send out an email to all of the drivers this week, actually on Monday, that kind of had a little bit of a synopsis of some of the changes that we're making, because there are a lot of things that are happening this year. And so hopefully they all got that. If not, give me a call or give Connie a call, and we can definitely make sure we send it to you. But we are going to go over most of that stuff today, too. We just want to make sure that we're getting the most information out to the drivers that we can as we get it. So I don't have all the answers yet. As we get closer to open enrollment, we are still a little over a month away from doing that. But the first thing to make note of is the open enrollment for 2024 benefits is going to be November 13th through the 24th. So that's the time when everybody, even if you already have the benefits, even if you don't want to make any changes, no matter what, everybody needs to go in and log in to the portal and select what they already have and accept it, or give us a call and we can help you do that as well. You don't necessarily have to log in yourself. We can do it too. But there is that self-service option, which is kind of nice. So you can really look things over, and especially with your spouse or whatever they're, and they can be there to see everything too. That's also always helpful.
Now, when it comes to open enrollment, if you don't mind, I'm just going to interject a quick question here. What does open enrollment define? If I have my benefits the way that I want them, I just need to check in real quick to make sure everything's the same. But let's say I want to change something. Is that the only window that I can make changes within during the year?
So that is the only open window, right? So that is the time where if there's nothing, like you just want to change it just because you want to change it, you can do that. You can make changes throughout the year, but you have to have a qualifying event. There are certain criteria that you have to meet in order to make those changes. So maybe you've lost coverage somewhere, you've gained it through another company, a birth of a child, adoption of a child. All of those things are qualifying events for certain things, but this is really the chance to change anything and everything that you want to do. At this time, we are making some changes to different carriers and different benefits. So it's also a good time to check all of those out and see all the options.
All right. So you've got 2 weeks basically at the end of November there to check everything out, make sure it's the way that it needs to be. Otherwise, you have to wait for one of those qualifying events, and those aren't always predictable.
Right. Right after you eat turkey and you're in that turkey coma, and just before you take the nap, this would be a good time. No, I'm just... Maybe do it before.
I was going to say, as soon as that fork hits the table, my eyelids slam shut. So maybe do it between stuffing and turkey. That's just my opinion.
Perfect. Maybe between the parade and dinner. I don't know.
There you go. Who watches the parade, though, Eve? I don't watch the parade. Come on.
Oh, really? That's a classic at our house. That's a must.
Oh, is it?
Wow.
Okay. Well, it's football's the must at my house. You might have picked up on that from just me not shutting up about football for the last month or so. So we all have our things. Anyway, I'm already taking up too much of your time. Please continue.
There's not a lot of changes when it comes to the structure of our medical plan. So that's still the same. We don't cover spouses in our medical insurance. So that's one thing that everybody is widely known. We cover employees and children. That's not changing. The insurance company is not changing, but what is changing is the deductible. So we're lowering the deductible from $3,000 to $2,000. So that's $1,000 less deductible that everyone will have to pay at the beginning of the year. Now, after that deductible is paid, the plan pays 100% of medical. So that is your max out of pocket. The most that will come out of your pocket on a single employee-only plan is going to be $2,000 now. So it's a really nice benefit for a family plan. When you're covering the kids, it goes up to $4,000, and then everything after that. Which last year it was $6,000, so that's also come down a little bit. So
that's great.
Yeah, we're really excited to be able to offer that. The other thing that kind of comes with that is we used to contribute into an HSA plan, and we would contribute $1,000 into that HSA every year. So we're not going to make that contribution anymore. Instead, we're taking that off the deductible off the top. So you can still contribute into the HSA, but H&M is not going to make that deposit this year just because we're taking it from the deductible.
Good to know. And HSA, since we hit you with kind of an onslaught of initials there, H&M's HSA, that stands for Health Savings Account, if I'm not mistaken, yes?
Right, exactly. So that brings me to another thing that I kind of want to talk about today is an HSA and an FSA. So HSA being Health Savings Account, FSA being a Flex Savings Account. So we offer both of those, but there's a lot of differences between the two. So they're both tax-free money that you can use for medical expenses. But the HSA, you have to have a high deductible health insurance plan in order to qualify for it. The H&M plan does qualify, but if you have a plan through, a spouse or something like that, it may not. So just keep that in mind. But everybody is eligible for the FSA. So there's no limits there. With the HSA, any funds will roll over year to year. That is your account and it is always your money. You'll never lose it. The FSA, that's the use it or lose it plan. So whatever you have at the end of the year, if you don't use it, then it rolls out and you start over again. Also, the HSA, you can always change your contribution throughout the year. So anytime you want to make any changes, just call us. We can do that for you. But the FSA, once you set it, it is that set amount every single paycheck, and you cannot make any changes to it. So that's also important to know. And then for the HSA, access is only what has been contributed by you, whereas the FSA comes fully funded every year. And you're basically paying H&M back for that money. So one, you only have the money you put in. The other one, you have all of the money and you're paying H&M back for it. So, and then the HSA is an account that would gain interest, and the FSA does not earn interest. So lots of differences between them. They're both used for healthcare, but you also, and this one's really important, the IRS is really cracking down that you cannot have both an HSA and an FSA for medical expenses. So you can't do both. You can't double dip. You have to have one or the other. You can have an FSA for dependent care, because that's another thing that it does where the HSA doesn't. You can use it to pay for daycare expenses and things like that, but you can't use them both for medical.
So definitely a good thing to know the differences between these two. And obviously, if you have any questions, as Eve said, give them a call because they'll be happy to walk you through it. Just make sure you do educate yourself on these things, because if you don't, this might get confused. An HSA and an FSA might be confused with an ESA, which is an empty savings account, which might be what you have if you don't work all of these things out and you have to pay for these expenses out of pocket.
That is correct, Marcus. That is such a genius over here.
Clever.
Just doing my part. Just doing my part.
So kind of moving it down the list of things here, in that things that are changing, right? Our dental, vision, life insurance, and the supplemental insurance is all moving to Mutual of Omaha under one umbrella for us. Previously, we had dental under Emeritus, we had vision, VSP, we had life insurance Prudential, we had all these different companies. So we're going to combine it all, put it under one umbrella, and really then benefit from discounted rates. So the dental insurance, it's going to Mutual of Omaha. The premiums are going to remain exactly the same, but there's a higher annual maximum. So last year it was $1,000. This year it's going up to $1,500. The orthodontia, it was $1,000. This year it's going up to $1,500. So some really good changes that are coming with that for the same price, which is nice. The vision insurance premiums are going to go down for that. It's about 22% decrease from what we were paying before. And then also it has an increased allowance for the frames and contacts. Last year it was $130. This year it's going up to $150. And then it also covers tents, scratch coatings, and UV protection, which was not covered under the old plan. So also a few benefits there for less costs, which that's a good benefit.
That's great. I'm hearing all good things at this point in time. It sounds like a lot of these changes, if not all of them, that we've discussed so far have been made to benefit the employee, which is always what we want to hear, and good news that we want to share on this podcast.
For sure. And really, just keeping in mind that every year as we're looking at these different things and different things we can offer and all of that, our goal is always to make sure that we're making the best possible decisions for the employees. Like, what is the best thing for them? What is going to be, and being good stewards of that. So it's really important to all of us that we're doing that. So voluntary and supplemental benefits. So these are previously the plans that we offered under AFLAC. So we are moving away from AFLAC and moving to Mutual of Omaha for those plans. The benefit of that is the Mutual of Omaha plans are about half the cost of those AFLAC plans, and sometimes, in some cases, even lower. So there will definitely be a decrease in premiums, and I think that will be great. A lot of the plans, the short-term disability, the critical illness, hospitalization, the accident plans, all of those are still available. One thing that's a little different in the Mutual of Omaha plans is the critical illness plan. So instead of having a separate cancer plan and critical illness that we did in AFLAC, it's now one plan. That critical illness covers everything, any kind of cancer, also the heart attack, the stroke, all of that. So it's one, you're paying for one plan rather than two. And then also another added benefit that they can offer is a long-term disability plan, which we did not have prior. So that will be a new option for drivers.
That's great. And anything that gets us one less AFLAC commercial on Sundays, I'm okay with that, Eve. So it sounds like Mutual of Omaha really coming in the clutch for us right now. So big ups to them.
For sure. That's the nice thing. You don't really hear too much about Mutual of Omaha outside of the insurance world because they're not paying for those big fancy commercials and things like that. So just keep in mind that your premium dollars are not going to pay for those big Super Bowl commercials, right? They're actually going back in. So that's good to know. But also, if there are folks out there that want to keep their Aflac plan, they can definitely do that. They just need to roll it over to a personal plan, and then it would come out of their account as a direct payment to Aflac. So they will be missing out on the tax benefit of having it come out of their check because right now it comes out pre-taxed, whereas paying it on your own would be post-tax. So there's a little bit of a benefit there having it payroll deduct, but they're certainly welcome to keep that Aflac. And I know that those reps will be in contact with everybody and kind of going over everything and what those options are for them.
Perfect. Quick check-in with Connie here. You've been really quiet. I assume that means Eve's been spot on with all of her information, but is there anything that you would like to add at this point? Maybe just a clever quip or a joke, anything for us?
I'm just mostly, fact checking Eve. She's giving all the correct information. I mainly just kind of wanted to make myself known. So like if any drivers have any questions or they need help enrolling into different benefits, I would be their point of contact. When Eve is busy or like if she's not there, I would take the bulk of the enrollment. I mean, she pretty much covered everything. I would also just like to add the anniversary pay for the drivers. This is kind of not really benefits, but kind of like benefits because as drivers, you don't get PTO. So office people, we get pay time off, but drivers, they get anniversary pay. So the first 3 years, drivers is going to get $850 after their initial anniversary date. So it would be on their check after their anniversary. It's gross income at $850. From the 4th and 5th year, they're going to get $1,700. And then the 6th year following after that is $2,550. So those are all pre-taxed. It'll go on a separate check in addition to their regular check. That is just all I wanted to add.
That's great. Any advice for getting my wife on this anniversary pay plan so that she can send me a check every year after we put in another good year of marriage? Because I'm suffering from the ESA, the empty savings account. I could really use these payments.
She needs a CDL at least and to be a sophomore driver. So she has to do that for at least 2 years. And then she can, become an H&M driver.
All right. Well, if she has any questions, I'm sending her your way, Connie.
The recruiting will be the point of contact.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha.
Just a little guy.
Perfect. What else do we have, Eve?
So the only other thing that is a big change this year is that because we're moving some of our benefits and things to different carriers, we are now not going to use paychecks as the benefit portal any longer. We actually have a separate benefit portal that we'll use. It's called Employee Navigator. Everybody will get an email with the information about how to log in and what that looks like when we get a little bit closer. It actually should be a lot easier to use. Very user friendly, and it's a little more robust system. So we'll be able to online enroll for life insurance, and we couldn't do that before. You'll be able to online enroll for the supplemental insurance, the accident, critical illness, hospital plans, all of that. And that was not an option prior. So we'll be able to do a lot more things with it, and you'll be able to get in there at any point, see that. And also, if you have a qualifying event, you can make changes through that portal as well. So really trying to just move into a more user-friendly system because drivers they're not here to do those paper enrollments. So we need to make sure that we're being as tech savvy as we can to make sure that they can do that.
Perfect.
And I'm always, a phone call away because I know a lot of drivers aren't as tech savvy. So, my main support is going to be, helping them navigate through the navigator, which is what the system we're using to sign up for all the benefits. So I know there's going to be lots of questions and I'm very patient. So they are free to call me.
That is right. She
there you
is
go.
Very patient.
Perfect. Well, look, if I can offer any advice, it's that sometimes I hear that drivers will sometimes play games of telephone with information like this. This is very nuanced. There's a lot to it. And you have two wonderful ladies sitting here with me right now that are more than happy to help you. So my advice is call Connie, call Eve, let them answer your questions rather than maybe relying on another driver that thinks they have it figured out. It's not to say that they don't. It's just that you will get the very most accurate information from my two friends here. So definitely utilize them.
For sure. And we're really excited about some of the changes, even just in like the accident and the critical illness plans, the wellness benefit, it's going from $60 to $100. Like there's just some really good things that are happening within those plans. And so we are happy to talk about them and kind of fill everybody in on what's new and what's different. And if they have any questions, we are just a phone call away.
That's great. Well, you know what? I want to give you two a big round of applause. Great job. I queued up the applause button for you because I knew you were going to come in here with a bunch of great information, and so far, so good. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell the drivers before I let you get back to work today?
The only thing that I just want to remind them is when we do sign up for benefits, they need a beneficiary. H&M does cover a $20,000 life insurance policy for them. So even if they don't elect to have any additional life insurance, they have that and they need to name a beneficiary. They will need their name, their address, their social security number, and their date of birth in order to name them. And that's really important. I can't even stress enough how important it is to have that beneficiary named, and then also to check that every year and make sure that's still up to date. You know, we've definitely had situations where, you know, it's been an ex-girlfriend or it's been not necessarily somebody in their family that they talk to anymore or something like that. And so just keeping those up to date so that it's the person that you want and you're deciding, it's important. So I really can't stress beneficiaries enough.
Yes, it's so important, in fact, that is not the first time that particular has been brought up on this podcast. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it before, so obviously, make sure that you've got that all dialed in because you don't want that ex-girlfriend getting any benefits if that has to happen. I mean, if you're not talking to these people anymore, get somebody in there that you love that really deserves it.
Absolutely. Somebody that's going to take care of things for you.
Oh, and
there you go.
I actually have one more thing. So another thing that I want all drivers to kind of double check on is whether or not they want to continue their per diem benefits. So we have a per diem program where it's you get 11 cents off of your base mileage where it's tax free. So if you are enrolled in it, 11 cents of each mile you drive is going to be tax free. So if they want to continue the coverage, they're going to have to renew it for 2024. If they want to cancel it, they're going to have to tell me when I call them for enrollment. So that's just a little something that I want to make sure they remember.
There you go. That's all great stuff, ladies. Thank you so much for coming on. I was excited about this episode, and you've exceeded my expectations. I feel like this is very informational, and drivers, if you're out there listening, like I said, you've got two people here willing to take your calls. Please give them a call. Let them know if you have any questions. Don't call me. I still don't know anything about it. If you want to call me, we can just chat. That's fine. But I'm not going to be able to help you with your benefits.
First time Marcus has ever said, don't call me. Usually he's like, please call me. Everybody, please. If anybody's out there, please call me. All of a sudden, he doesn't have anything to say? Okay.
Well, let's not kid each other here, Eve. Everybody knows I've got something to say all the time. So you both have done such a fantastic job today. Once again, thank you for your time. And we will be in touch with you. We've got another great segment of Laying Down the Law with Eve coming up in a future episode. And Connie, you did so well today. I think that you might have to enter the normal guest roster. What do you think?
I mean, just depends. What is it that you want to talk about? I don't got.
I mean, your feelings, your thoughts. Where's your favorite place to be when you're off? I mean, you know, the personal stuff.
I mean, sure, if you want. I mean, I'm not very exciting, but you know, if you need content, I'm all here. I'm all about social media.
Perfect. I'm sure Eve will have a thing or two to tell you about who you're actually dealing with once we get off of this call. So you can make your decision after you have that conversation with her. Eve Essary, Connie Tran, thank you so much for being here today on the H&M Trucking Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we started this bit last week, and we're going to keep it rolling this week. Actually, my good friend Eve sent me a little bit more info, a little bit of different info than what we talked about last week. Now, you're going to hear some repeated stats here, but I think it's good to keep talking about this stuff because, as we all know, it's deer season. People are hunting them. They are breeding. There's a lot of things going on in a deer's life right now that are causing it to, I don't know, just test the waters on your local highway. And rural highways especially, 2-lane highways, places with bar ditches alongside the road, places where you don't have a choice but to hit the poor thing. Or at least you can't swerve. That's the biggest thing. And this document that Eve sent me, I'm just going to go ahead and read it for you. It's called the Safety Management Services Company, Safety First, information dedicated to driver safety. And this is all about animal strikes. Here's what they say. Do not swerve around an animal. You could lose control of your vehicle and hit a tree or another vehicle, both potentially much worse than hitting an animal in the first place. If you swerve, there's also a chance that the animal will panic and run into your path. We've talked about this. They're not the smartest. According to the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, this is the part we talked about last week, there are an estimated 1.5 million animal vehicle collisions annually in the U.S., causing more than 150 fatalities and $1.1 billion in property damage. Certain states experience more collisions with animals than others. According to State Farm's annual claim statistics, the states with the largest number of accidents involving animals between July 1st, 2005 and June 30th, 2006, these are a little bit dated stats, were Pennsylvania, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, Virginia, Minnesota, Texas, Indiana, and South Carolina. Because those statistics are a little bit out of date, those states are a little different than the ones that we talked about, but some of your main players still showing up there like Pennsylvania and Virginia. Take special care near animal crossing warning signs. This is something we didn't talk about last week. And really, it makes sense to talk about it. I can't count the number of times I've driven by an animal crossing sign and you don't even give it any passing mind. You just see it and it doesn't really mean anything. It's not like a stop sign. It's not like a yield sign or a railroad crossing sign where it triggers something in your head. But that's the point of it. It should trigger something in your head. If you see that yellow sign with a deer galloping across the road, that means that deer like to gallop across that road. So keep your eyes up, all right? Be aware that animals adapt well to living close to humans and that some populated areas are as likely to have animals around as rural areas. The signs are there for a reason. Use your high beams whenever possible. Again, we've talked about my personal anecdotes with high beams, but I would say default to the people that write the safety documents on this. They give you more time to spot and react to animals on the road. That's your high beams. Keep your speed down at night. Most collisions do occur on narrow, 2-lane rural highways, but they can occur on any type of road. If you see one animal, expect that there are others nearby. According to the Animal Protection Institute, 70% of animal and car collisions result after the driver slowed down for one animal and then accelerated, failing to see another. That's another repeat from last week. Where there's one, there's more. Always remember that. Unless you're hunting. Where there's one, there's no more. You'll never see another one. If you only see one and you have a tag for that particular animal, take it so that you can fill the freezer. I digress, okay? I'm getting off onto a tangent here. Had a couple of bad seasons the last couple of years. Let's get back to where we should be. Know which seasons and times are worse than others. That's kind of the whole idea behind doing the Bambi report here, late in the year, basically late fall, early winter. Deer are most active in the months of October, November, and December during the peak breeding season. Late February and early March are also critical months for deer collisions, and I have to assume that this comes from there's a lot of young newborn deer out there, fawns, if you will, and they're tiny. As much as I hate to say it and as brutal as this sounds, there's even less reason to swerve for a fawn because the things weigh like 20, 30 pounds. Kind of think about the difference between what would happen if you just hit that baby deer, that fawn, or you swerve maybe into oncoming traffic, maybe off into a bar ditch. There are so many worse things that can happen than taking the life of that one deer that just so happened to cross your path. Be especially watchful of animals in fair weather periods before storms. Animals are usually seen along the roadside during the early morning hours and late evening. We covered that last week as well. Don't jeopardize vehicle control when avoiding animals. This is really important. If you do see a deer or another animal on the road, don't slam on the brakes. Keep your lane position. Sound your horn. If you have a party horn like that on your truck, first of all, you're the coolest driver in the world. But if you don't, you probably got one of those really loud semi-truck horns. They said last week, we talked about it, deer whistles don't work. I would assume a really loud horn probably would. Keep your lane position, sound your horn while braking in a controlled manner. Sudden panic stops are not a good idea as they could spook the animal, causing it to suddenly dart into the path of another vehicle. That last part there, look, I'm just here. I'm not really even here to give commentary. I'm here to move the conversation along. But I will say this. It's no fault of yours and not really any concern of yours either if the animal runs across your lane and into oncoming traffic in the other lane. Your main prerogative here is to not hit the deer if you can avoid it and to not hurt yourself if you can't. If it runs across and takes out a Prius in the other lane, tough luck. I'm sorry. I guess you should have been sounding your horn. So that's pretty much all I've got as far as that is concerned. Next week, I think we'll be able to touch a little bit more on the Bambi report and also start working our way into winter driving because there are plenty of spots out there on the road that are going to start to see some pretty inclement weather as we move through October. So that's your Bambi report. And I think last week I topped it off with one of these. It works for a Bambi report. Let's get to the next interview.
Knowledge and stories from coast to coast. This is your driver profile.
Time for our driver profile here on the H&M Trucking podcast, and we've got somebody coming back for round 2. It's H&M driver Zach Beckman. Zach, thanks so much for being here today, man.
Yeah, not a problem. What we got on the menu this time?
Well, first things first, I owe you an apology, actually, and, we had your name spelled right in every single possible place that we could have put it except for the one that found you on Facebook, and your name was misspelled on the graphic. I'm the face of this podcast, so I'm the one that owes you an apology. Sorry about that. You did joke with me that you're thinking about actually changing the spelling of your name because it gets misspelled so much, but I got to be honest with you, man. Zach is not a tough one. I should have caught that, so my sincerest apologies to you, my friend.
No, that's not even close to the funniest one I had. I believe I was out in Virginia, Carolina, something like that, all the way over on the East Coast. And back when I drove for Warner, best one I had still to this day, lady spelled it, what's your name for the order? Zachary, Zakry.
Oh.
And don't get me wrong, spelling was way off. However, if you look at it and pronounce it, it makes sense. I see how you get it. So,
yeah, I don't know, man. I think you're giving her a little bit too much mileage on that one, to be honest.
It makes for a great story later, though. It really does. So, yeah, I could live with it. Yeah, it was a good one.
Good. So. Well, I'm glad that you can live with it. You're not too upset. Not upset enough to not come back. That's what really matters to me.
I got you guys.
I've got a pretty easy to spell name. Sometimes people throw the K in there instead of the C. But when I was a high school wrestler, I had a coach that you couldn't read his writing, and he used to have to write on the weight cards our names and turn them in. And for my first ever high school wrestling tournament, when they called my name, they called, I think I was at 125 pounds, Mar-ass Bridge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right?
That is awesome.
I went up to him, I was like, Coach, I know that you can spell because you're a teacher of mine, so what the hell, man? And of course, just like you, he just laughed it off, man. Just don't worry about it. My girlfriend was in the stands. My parents were there. I was so excited. They didn't even know I was wrestling. They were looking for some guy named Mar-ass, so...
It's one of those. It might be a mistake, and obviously people will give you smoke over it later. But it's one of those. It makes for a great story to have.
Yes,
it's one of those you have it in your back pocket.
It is, man. It is. And I'll always remember that. And so, again, I just appreciate you being back here and not holding it against us. Where are you at and where are you headed today, Zach?
A little bit outside of, according to GPS, a little outside of Lawrence, Kansas. You know, a state that loves trying to get us for speeding tickets when we're out here. So, especially if you're back on any of the U.S. highways, Kansas seems to love H&M Trucking whenever we're coming through.
Really?
As far as where I'm going, as far as where I'm going, I'm working my way over to Sherwin-Williams over there in Effingham, Illinois. So, kind of debating on where I'm going to call today. I can get relatively close. Can't quite get there though. So, but yeah, Kansas loves us and loves getting us speeding tickets. If I remember right, it was Kansas, Indiana, and I believe Illinois were the top three that loved getting us the most, and Kansas was number one.
Now, do you actually think that the patrol units are out there looking at the logos on the side of the truck? I mean, obviously, there's something to it if a lot of drivers are getting popped in those states, but I also wonder, are those just the states that they have more H&M drivers running through?
You know, I would say conspiracy theorist wise, oh yeah, they're looking out for us. You know, pulling Alex Jones and just be like H&M. You know, but honestly, I think a lot of it is, especially the back roads. I wouldn't necessarily call them full on speed traps, but there definitely are the zones where it goes from 65 to 55 relatively quick, or you know, since our trucks are governed at about 70-ish. I'm willing to bet again at the end of the month when cops are out the most, they're catching the drivers that are, you know, trying to push that limit or rolling their weight down the hill and in, you know, in a 65 mile an hour zone and, you know, catch us through there is what I'd be willing to bet most of them are.
Sure.
So.
You know, I spoke to a county sheriff one time, and I said something along the lines of, yeah, it's the end of the month, so you guys are busy out there. And he totally blew that theory out of the water. He said, no, that's not the way it goes. And I asked him, I said, then there's one question you can't answer. Why is every speeding ticket I've gotten in my 40 years on this earth in the last week of the month? I feel like I get through all these same places without any trouble. But the end of the month rolls around, and all of a sudden, you guys got happy trigger fingers on that radar gun.
Well, not only that, but another counter to that would be if that's completely a false statement, then I got a better question. There's plenty of proof to this one. Why are all the cop cars out on the road the last week and the first week of the month, every month without fail? Like, why do I see them like every other mile or two at the beginning and the end of the month?
Right.
Like, you can't pull a fast one on me when it's that obvious.
Right. And especially not on you, who you're out there all those other weeks, too. It's not like you just magically appear on the first and last week of the month. You're there in those middle couple of weeks, too, and they're not. So what gives?
Exactly. You got the ones out playing nice throughout the entire month, and then you got the ones that, you know, either try and get their quota knocked out early in the month or closer to the end of the month when they're rushing.
Yep.
You can't pull that one over on us. No, that's a lie. You lying to me is a lie. Yeah. Come on now.
You know what? Next time I talk to that guy, I'm going to have him tune into episode 30 of the H&M Trucking podcast, and he can really find out what we actually think of him when he's not around, because I thought it was a lie too. I couldn't believe he was lying straight to my face as an officer of the law in full uniform. But hey, whatever you got to do to get some sleep at night. If you got to make us feel like what's happening isn't actually happening, okay, that's on you, you know. But I've had enough of you drivers mention that theory, and I think it's funny that it's like it's just a theory. With the internet the way it is, we know everything now. Can some honest officer please just post online in a place where it can go viral so that we can all finally put this theory to bed? It's not a theory anymore. It's a fact at this point.
Yes. And now, mind you, there is the one, and I can't remember his channel. I know I've stumbled across it a couple times. If I remember right, it's down in either Arizona or it's somewhere along the 10 or 12 or 20, something like that, down in that area. And there's actually a cop out there who has a video, has his own channel now, that he's actually intentionally sharing the videos of finally targeting or going after the people that enjoy the pleasure of when there's not a cop around, they sit out in the left lane. When there is a cop around is when they finally move over. and they've been using undercover car in order to do it now, and they've been getting plenty of people that just coast out in the left lane, aren't passing anybody, and then when you get the people that are trying to get a move on, they can't get a move on because the left lane's blocked. So, there is that one finally out there for everybody to see. So
I wonder if that guy
progress.
I wonder if that guy has a Patreon account, because I think I would kick him down a couple of bucks and subscribe just for getting those people a ticket in their hand so that they understand that I need them the hell out of my way. I have a little bit of a lead foot when I drive, and people that camp in the left lane annoy me more than a bad wart on your foot. I mean, it's nuts. I can't imagine what you guys deal with, because you're pretty much always in the right lane. You only need to get out to pass. And if there's somebody there preventing you from doing so, how do you not just beat a hole into your steering wheel out of anger and frustration?
I think that one in return gets exchanged out for people yelling and screaming at the windshield and having to clean that one off a little more often. But what type of better revenge for the people that want to sit there and train, be the individual that's trying to be the cop and keep people from speeding? What better revenge is there than if you hop over in the right lane and let these cars fly by and let the cops that's sitting a little bit further up that has that radar gun that we don't see until it's about 2 seconds too late, and they tag us and you see us get pulled over a little bit further down the road? What type of better revenge is that over, let me just sit in the left lane, hold everybody up? It's like, you will get a better laugh, and we've all done it. You will get a better laugh if you just let me speed by and get busted down the road, and then you pass me again, be like, see, that's what you get. You see, we both got to the same point at the same time, and now I'm going further down the road while you're pulled over by a cop.
Just because you use the collective we a couple of times in that, I'm assuming you kind of have a lead foot when you're driving your personal vehicle as well?
And thankfully, I have not gotten in trouble with my personal vehicles so far.
Good.
Trying to keep it that way. Florida's relatively forgiving, thankfully.
Okay, that's where your personal vehicle is driven the most, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've been on the roads in Florida, man. Forgiving is one way to put it. Terrifying is another way to put it, because I do feel like it's forgiving enough that the general speed around there is just higher than what I'm used to seeing out here on the West Coast.
So usually the rule of thumb, and mind you, this is a bit of a giveaway, but usually the rule of thumb and the collective understanding out in Florida, if the speed limit is 65 or even 70, I think the highest one we have is 70 on one of the turnpikes. Almost everybody is doing 80 mile an hour. Almost everybody out there is doing 80 mile an hour. And if you're not, you better be in the right lane. The rule is, though, if you get pulled over, don't give the cop any flack, because they let you get away with it almost any and everywhere where it's 65, 70 mile an hour. And the common rule is if you're the one who gets busted, don't give them flack. Although there's plenty of videos of Florida man, giving them flack. But usually the rule of thumb is you don't give them flack. They'll work with you, and usually you get out of it scot-free, or a very minimal ticket. Thankfully, I've managed to avoid it. However, I have seen others in a group I was running with before pulled over and so on and so forth. But you'll even see the cops, no lights on, 65 mile an hour zone. They're doing 80, 85, and you'll just see everybody tuck in behind them and, tag along. Sure. So,
yeah. Well, I've told the story on this podcast before, way back in the Unplugged OTR days. It's in one of those episodes. You can find it if you're listening and you're wanting to check out this full story. But being polite and honest with a cop got me out of an impoundable ticket. Let's just put it that way. I was going fast enough in the state of Oregon that legally they could have impounded my car. And I was a freshman in college. I was going home to see my parents for the very first time since I'd left home. And yeah, I was on the gas. There was nobody on Interstate 84. It was just me and the Columbia River. And this cop, I found out later. But I was really nervous. I was concerned that I was going to go home and show my parents yet another bill, which there were a lot of them stacking up in college. And he came back and he gave me my info, my license, and he said, Mr. Bridges, you're being polite and honest with me today, and I really appreciate that. Slow it down and drive safe. And I haven't stopped telling that story for 20 years because of how much it bought me just being agreeable with that particular cop. And I mean, like I said, I could have been stranded in Arlington, Oregon, which is not a place you want to be stranded for those of you that have gone by it there on Interstate 84. Not much there. And he saved me a lot of money and a lot of time. I really have adopted that with every run-in that I have with the police. Just polite and honest, very straightforward. Don't try to hide anything if you've got nothing to hide. Don't look suspicious. And it turns out pretty well for you in the long run.
And for all we know, if you play nice with them, and some people say yes, play the yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am game. But regardless, as long as you play nice with them, you don't make their day any harder. For all you know, they could just come off of having pulled over somebody else that was a complete and total pain, and all that stuff. And you playing nice, may give them a chance to wind down and be like, all right, I'm willing to work with them. Make their day a little bit easier and play nice and give them a chance to cool off. It may be helping them out as well. So, do
you find that in your experience that cops are nicer or harder on truck drivers?
That's a good question. As far as regular cops, it depends on how bad the violation is. If say you're going through a construction zone way too fast, stuff like that, if you play nice with the cop and you try and get pulled over as soon as you can, they can play nice with you. As far as DOT, I've had numerous run-ins where if you're bluntly honest with DOT, and I've even, back when I was over at Warner, I had a brand new Kenworth, got pulled in, got a level 1, they wanted to check my logs and everything. They even asked me, they're like, well, we got to see if we check your logs. I was like, well, you want the truth or you want me to lie to you? And they're like, well, I'd rather you tell us the truth. And I was like, hey, you got to see bare minimums across the board. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, that's all you guys require on DOT regulation. That's what I'm going to give you, because otherwise I need to get down the road. And he's like, so no other violations? I was like, hopefully not. There might have been went over my clock a little bit, but, much past that, it's nice and pretty. And even over here at H&M, you'll have some of them, you go in there and they'll take a look at it. In fact, I was just up in Wyoming, and same thing. They just wanted to take a quick glance at it, and they're like, all right, good enough for us. So long as you're at least giving them at least a reasonable looking log, they'll work with you.
Sure.
But, so long as you're not going too over the top with them and being a pain in their butt, usually they'll work with you.
Yeah. Don't make their day longer, and carry a dozen donuts. I mean, it's worth a try, right? You never know. If you offer somebody a cruller or like a bear claw, maybe they just let you drive off. They don't even talk to you.
I've seen some videos that make a funny about that, and then there's obviously the comedian Gabriel Iglesias, who made that one too. Got pulled over by a cop right as he had just finished going to a donut store, and cop asked him, "Oh, you know why I pulled you over?" And he just opened it up and he's like, "'Cause you could smell them." I've been sitting here like, man, I don't want to get pulled over, but man, I really wish I had a thing of donuts on me for the day I do, because that would be absolutely hilarious.
Well, if you're just looking for the laugh, just throw an old apple fritter in the glove box next to all your information. And when they ask for license and registration, just pull that thing out. It's going to be stale and hard, but maybe they'll laugh about it,
Oh, yeah. And there's another one, mind you, that one's a little bit political, but for anybody that, with all the nonsense going on, I've seen it a few times. There's a couple ways to find. There's one called the white privilege card and the race card. And I've heard a couple people use, their whichever one they had on them, and a cop got a good laugh out of it. And I was like, man, if only. That would be, I don't know if my luck would be good enough for that, but I do happen to have them, and that could make for a good laugh if that ever happens. Make them get a good laugh out of it.
Yeah, and you got to think about how many people give them a good laugh each day. Right. All the people that they pull over, all the headaches that they have to deal with. I mean, a good laugh's got to be worth something. Like, give me $100 off on the ticket that you're going to inevitably hand me. I like this.
A laughing discount. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe that's our future, Zach, together, is we start a podcast and teach people how to make cops laugh rather than give them tickets. I'm sure we'd get some great stories out of some of the H&M drivers out there.
Oh, yeah, just like some of the other stories. There's one I heard, cop, it's a joke. A cop pulls somebody over. He says, if you tell me a good joke, I'll let you go. If it's one I haven't heard. Man's like, all right, well, what'd you pull me over for? He's like, well, I pulled you over for speeding. And he's like, oh, well, I saw you chasing me down. I thought you were trying to bring me back my ex. That's why I was trying to run away. And the cop's like, have a good day, sir, and let him go about his way. It's like, oh, I need to use that one, see if that one will work in the semi.
Yeah,
I might actually be able to get away with that one.
There you go, man. I love it. Well, Zach, I've taken up enough of your time today, man. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I promise you that your name is going to be spelled correctly on every piece of promotion that we do for this podcast. And just from the bottom of my heart, you really pulled through here for us on this one. No reason to get into why, but thank you for coming through in the clutch here for the H&M Trucking Podcast.
Of course. I know somebody else that would have been willing to volunteer, but he's a little further out in the middle of nowhere, out in the mountains, so his signal probably would have been a little bit hit and miss more than mine was. So there was a couple spots where it kind of dipped out during our call, but came back just in time where I was able to catch everything. So, oh yeah, I got you guys. Good, man. Anything you want to say to your fellow drivers or H&M staff out there before I let you go? I know he's going to throw me under the bus again when he hears this one. So you need to get him on here. That way you can drag him into it too. So his name would happen to be Ryan Taves. He's thrown me under the bus twice for, hey, use this guy. And, you guys need to get a hold of him and drag him on here too. So you got it, man. I'll get with Eve and we'll at least bug him. I can't force him, but I can bother him. That's for sure. Yeah, we could drag him kicking and screaming, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely, man. You be safe out there, Zach, and we'll get you back on sometime in the future. All right, my friend? All right. Have a good one. Be safe, guys. That's Zach Beckman, H&M driver. Pull the e-brake and drop the shade. That puts the wraps on episode 30 of the H&M Trucking Podcast. A unique episode of the H&M Trucking Podcast. We only talked to just a few people. I want to say a big thanks to Eve Essary and Connie Tran from HR at H&M for coming on and explaining the open enrollment and the new benefits package, the whole deal. Look, it's all set up to make sure that you can get the benefits that you deserve as an employee of H&M. So make sure to utilize those two, both Connie and Eve. If you need any help, give them a call. Don't call me. I'll have nothing but just bad jokes and, I don't know, maybe some tailgate recipes. I could be good for that type of thing this time of year. So also want to say a big thanks to Zach Beckman, who made his second appearance on the H&M Trucking Podcast this episode. It was a great interview. Love these driver profiles. Again, another reminder, if you want to be in a driver profile or if you know a driver that would make for a very good driver profile, let us know. Maybe you're talking about your benefits with Connie and Eve. Mention it to them. Or you can hop in the comments section on any of our social posts and let me know. Tag the driver. I'll get in touch with them. And hey, I don't expect everybody to say yes. I've had a few drivers turn me down. Not for anything, suspicious or anything like that. It's just, maybe I'm not really a big podcast guy. I get it. You know how many of my friends I've had to turn into podcast guys? All two of them. Stay fresh, cheese bags. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the H&M Trucking Podcast. Please leave a review, subscribe, and connect with Marcus over at the H&M Trucking social media channels. And if you're considering a job at H&M, find us at hmtrucking.com. Until next time, stay safe and ahead of the curve drivers.